I'm Bella, 22, female, and I got my revenge by getting engaged at my stepsister's wedding after she did the same thing at my college graduation party. It was a calculated, deliberate act, a mirror reflecting a hurt she had inflicted on me without a second thought. Now my phone is silent. My father won't take my calls, my stepmother has blocked me on every platform imaginable, and my stepsister, Chloe, has sent a single, final text message with one word: evil. They have cut me off completely, a unanimous verdict from a family jury that never once asked for my side of the story. And despite the hollow ache in my chest where a family used to be, I don't regret it. To understand why, you have to understand my family, or rather, the blended unit that was formed when my father, David, married Chloe's mother, Karen, when I was 10 years old. I was a quiet, bookish child, still reeling from my own mother's passing 2 years prior. My dad, lost in his own grief, saw Karen as a lifeline, a way to bring light and structure back into our home. Chloe, who was 12, was part of that package. From the very beginning, it was clear that Chloe was the sun, and I was a minor planet caught in her orbit. Karen made sure of it. My father, a kind but conflict-avoidant man, just wanted peace. He saw Karen's blatant favoritism not as a slight against me, but as a mother's natural love for her child. He encouraged me to be the bigger person, to build a bridge, to be a sister to Chloe. What he failed to see was that the bridge was always a one-way street, leading directly to Chloe's wants and needs, while mine were left on the other side of the canyon. The examples are as numerous as the stars, but a few burn brighter in my memory. For my 13th birthday, I had asked for one thing, a professional set of sketching pencils and charcoals. I had discovered a passion for art, and it was the one thing that felt truly mine. My dad had promised them to me. At my small, family-only party, I opened his gift, and my heart soared. It was the beautiful wooden case I had circled in an art catalog. But before I could even thank him properly, Karen clapped her hands together. "And now for Chloe's gift to the birthday girl," she announced. Chloe, with a practiced smile, handed me a large, gaudily wrapped box. Inside was a bright pink, sequined handbag, the kind of thing she adored but knew I would never use. "I know how much you wanted to be more fashionable," she declared loudly. Karen beamed. "Isn't that thoughtful, David? Chloe is always trying to help Bella come out of her shell." My father, caught in the spotlight, just smiled and nodded. "That's very sweet, Chloe." The attention of the room, my own birthday room, shifted entirely to Chloe's magnanimous gesture. My beautiful art set sat forgotten on the table, its quiet promise overshadowed by her loud, glittering offering. I mumbled a thank you and felt the familiar sting of being a supporting character in my own life. This pattern repeated itself through our school years. In my sophomore year of high school, I won a state-level award for a digital art piece I'd spent months creating. It came with a small scholarship and a ceremony at the state capitol. I was ecstatic. The same week, Chloe, a senior, was voted most likely to be famous in the school yearbook. The school award was a legitimate, recognized achievement. Chloe's was a popularity contest. At dinner that Friday, I brought out the letter from the art competition committee. My dad read it and his face lit up with genuine pride. "Bella, this is incredible," he said. "We have to frame this." For a moment I felt seen, then Karen cleared her throat. "That's lovely, dear," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "And Chloe has some wonderful news too. Tell them, sweetie," Chloe preened. Well, my yearbook superlative was announced. Everyone says I have star quality. Karen clasped her hands together. "A star, I always knew it. We absolutely must celebrate this weekend. A special dinner just for our star." The celebration dinner happened. My state award was mentioned in a passing toast, but the evening was dedicated to Chloe's star quality. My father went along with it, eager to keep Karen happy. He gave me a proud wink across the table, as if that small gesture could make up for the public dismissal of my hard work. He didn't understand that his silence, his complicity, was what hurt the most. Years of this, of my achievements being downplayed while Chloe's whims were magnified, created a deep, unshakable rift. My relationship with my stepmother was one of polite tolerance. My relationship with my stepsister was a performance. I smiled at family dinners, I endured the holidays, and I counted down the days until I could leave for college. College was my escape. It was 4 years of being just Bella, not Chloe's stepsister. I thrived. I made real friends, excelled in my graphic design program, and I met Liam. Liam was everything my family life was not. Stable, fair, and logical. A software developer, he saw the world in clear, defined terms. When I told him stories about Chloe and Karen, he didn't tell me I was being sensitive or that I should be the bigger person. He listened, his brow furrowed, and said, "That is fundamentally unfair." Hearing him validate my feelings was like drinking water after years in the desert. He saw the injustice, and he loved me not in spite of my quiet nature, but because of it. With Liam by my side, I felt stronger. I managed the occasional visits home with a newfound armor of self-worth. I was building a life for myself, a life where I was the main character. My graduation was meant to be the capstone of this achievement, the official start of my independent life, celebrated with the people who were supposed to love me most. I should have known Chloe wouldn't let me have that one, untarnished moment. I should have known she'd find a way to turn the spotlight back on herself. The day of my college graduation party was perfect. The late May sun cast a golden glow over our backyard, the one I had grown up in before Karen and Chloe had arrived. My father had, to his credit, gone all out. He'd hired caterers, strung up fairy lights in the old oak tree, and set up a photo board with pictures of me from my first day of kindergarten to my final university project. For the first time in a long time, our home felt like it was celebrating me. My friends from college mingled with my aunts and uncles. Liam was a constant, steady presence by my side, his hand always finding mine, his smile radiating a pride that felt more real and valuable than any formal recognition. I was wearing a simple white dress, my graduation cap with its tassel sitting on the gift table. I felt a sense of profound, unburdened happiness. I had made it. The years of hard work, of late nights in the design studio, of navigating the complex emotional minefield of my family, it had all led to this perfect, sun-drenched afternoon that was all mine. My father gave a touching speech, his voice thick with emotion as he spoke of my mother and how proud she would have been. He talked about my resilience and my talent, and as he spoke, I saw Karen give Chloe a subtle, impatient look. It was a fleeting expression, but I caught it. It was the look of someone waiting for their turn on stage. After my father's speech, and after a few of my friends had shared some funny stories, the party settled into a comfortable buzz of conversation and laughter. Liam and I were talking to my favorite art professor when Chloe picked up a champagne flute and clinked it with a spoon. The clear, ringing sound cut through the chatter, and all eyes turned to her. She stood near the center of the patio, perfectly positioned to capture everyone's attention. She was wearing a tight, bright red dress that stood out like a stop sign against the soft pastels of the garden party. Her fiancé-to-be, Jason, a smug-looking financial analyst, stood just behind her, a proprietary hand on her back. "Hi, everyone," Chloe began, her voice radiating practiced charm. "I know today is all about Bella, and we are also so proud of her." She gestured vaguely in my direction without making eye contact. My stomach tightened. I knew this tone. This was her "I'm being gracious, but" tone. Finishing college is such a huge accomplishment, and it's a reminder that life is all about moving on to the next big chapter. She paused for dramatic effect, her eyes sweeping across the captured audience. And speaking of big chapters, she turned her body slightly, lifting her left hand into a ray of sunlight. A diamond, so large it looked comical, flashed brilliantly, sending prisms of light dancing across the patio. A collective gasp went through the crowd. "Jason and I are engaged," she squealed. The announcement landed like a bomb in the middle of my perfect day. The air shifted instantly. The quiet celebration of my academic achievement was obliterated by the loud, flashy spectacle of a diamond ring. Jason stepped forward, beaming, and kissed Chloe theatrically. My stepmother, Karen, was the first to react. She let out a shriek of pure joy and rushed forward to embrace Chloe, sobbing with happiness. My baby is getting married, I'm so happy." The partygoers, caught off guard but swept up in the moment, erupted in applause and congratulations. People swarmed Chloe and Jason, leaving me and Liam standing alone by the photo board of my life, suddenly feeling like ghosts at our own feast. My graduation, the very reason for the gathering, evaporated. It was now Chloe's engagement party. My father came over to me, his face a mixture of shock and helplessness. "Bella, I had no idea," he stammered. "I'm so sorry." But his apology was a whisper in a hurricane of excitement for Chloe. He was soon pulled away by Karen, who was demanding he come and congratulate his future son-in-law properly. He went, leaving me with his weak apology hanging in the air. I just stood there, frozen. The white dress that had felt so celebratory just moments before now felt like a surrender flag. I watched as Chloe held court, retelling her proposal story to an adoring audience, her laughter echoing through the yard that was supposed to be celebrating me. She hadn't just stolen my thunder, she had hijacked the entire sky. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a thoughtless, spontaneous announcement. It was a power play, a deliberate declaration that no matter what I achieved, her life events would always be more important. She had seen my one day of pure, unadulterated recognition and decided she deserved it more. Liam's hand tightened around mine. He didn't say anything. He just looked from my face to the scene across the lawn and back again. The anger in his eyes was a reflection of the cold, hard knot forming in my gut. He led me quietly into the house, away from the noise. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, his voice a stark contrast to the shrieking joy in the backyard. I shook my head, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Tears of anger and humiliation burned behind my eyes. "She couldn't just give me this one day," I finally whispered, the words tasting like ash. "Just one." He wrapped his arms around me, and I leaned into him, the happy facade I had maintained for years finally crumbling. "What she did was unforgivable, Bella," he said, his voice firm. "Completely and utterly unforgivable." It was in that moment, wrapped in his arms in the quiet kitchen while my own party raged on without me, that the seed of my revenge was planted. It wasn't a fully formed idea yet, just a dark, swirling feeling. An eye for an eye. A celebration for a celebration. If she thought my biggest moment was an appropriate venue for her life announcement, then I would return the favor. Her biggest moment would be the perfect venue for mine. The weeks following my graduation party were a masterclass in gaslighting. My moment was not just stolen, it was erased. The family group chat, once filled with "congrats, grad" messages, was now an endless stream of wedding-related excitement. Photos of Chloe's ring were followed by discussions of potential venues, guest lists, and dress styles. My 4 years of work, my degree, my future career, all of it had become a footnote to the much grander story of Chloe's wedding. When I tried, gently at first, to express my hurt to my father, the response was deflating. We were on the phone, and I could hear Karen's voice in the background. "Dad, I was just really hurt that Chloe chose my party to make her announcement," I said, my voice small. "Oh, honey," he sighed, the sound already weary. "She was just excited. She didn't mean anything by it. You know Chloe, she gets swept up in things. Don't let it spoil your big accomplishment." But it did spoil it, I insisted, my frustration growing. No one even talked about my graduation after that. It became her engagement party. "Now, Bella, that's not true," he said, his tone shifting from placating to defensive. "You're being a little sensitive. Your stepmother and I are just thrilled for both of you. Can't you just be happy for your sister?" There it was, your sister. The 2 words he used to shut down any complaint, to guilt me into silence. The conversation ended with me murmuring a defeated, "okay," and him, relieved, quickly changing the subject to ask if I'd seen the pictures of the waterfront venue Chloe was considering. My attempt to speak with Karen was even worse. She called me a few days later, her voice syrupy sweet. "Bella, darling, I hope you're not holding any silly grudges about the party. Chloe feels just terrible that you might be upset." "I am upset, Karen," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It was my graduation party." The sweetness vanished. "And we were all there for you," she snapped. "But life moves on. Frankly, an engagement is a much bigger deal than a college degree. Millions of people get degrees. This is Chloe finding her partner for life. You should be mature enough to understand that and be gracious. Gracious, mature, the bigger person. I had been hearing these words my whole life. They were code for let Chloe win. I ended the call, my hands shaking with a rage that felt cold and sharp. They weren't just dismissing my feelings, they were rewriting history to paint me as the villain, the petty, jealous sister who couldn't handle sharing the spotlight. The truth was, I had been forced to share it my entire life. This one time, I hadn't been willing, and that made me the problem. It was during a quiet evening a month later that the plan solidified. Liam and I were making dinner in our small apartment, the air filled with the scent of garlic and basil. I was recounting my latest frustrating conversation with my father, who had called to ask, or rather, inform me that I would be a bridesmaid and was expected to contribute to a lavish bachelorette party in another state. It's like they're building a monument to Chloe, and they expect me to help quarry the stone, I said, chopping a tomato with more force than necessary. Liam stopped stirring the pasta sauce and looked at me. He had that thoughtful, analytical expression he got when he was working through a complex piece of code. You know, he said slowly, we've been talking about getting engaged for a while now. My hand stilled. We have, I said cautiously, my heart starting to beat a little faster. We know we want to spend our lives together. We're just waiting for the right time, he continued, making air quotes with his fingers. But what is the right time? When you have a stable job, when we have a down payment for a house, or, he paused, a slow smile spreading across his face, or is the right time the moment that provides the most? Symmetrical justice. I stared at him, the half-chopped tomato forgotten. The dark, swirling seed of an idea that had been planted on my graduation day began to sprout, reaching for the light of his suggestion. At her wedding, I whispered, the words feeling dangerous and exhilarating. At her wedding, he confirmed, his smile widening. She announces her engagement at your milestone celebration. You announce yours at hers, it's perfectly balanced. An eye for an eye, a party for a party. We stood there in silence for a moment, the gravity of what he was proposing hanging in the air. It was audacious. It was petty. It was, in the words my family would surely use, a terrible thing to do. But it also felt right. It felt like the only move left on a chessboard where I had been playing with no queen and half my pawns missing. They'll lose their minds, I said. Absolutely, Liam agreed. They'll be furious. My dad, he might never forgive me. He's been complicit in them hurting you for years, Bella, Liam said gently but firmly. He chose his path a long time ago. This isn't about hurting him. It's about taking back your own story. It's about showing them, in a language they can't ignore or dismiss, what it feels like. We talked about it for hours that night, long after the pasta was eaten and the plates were cleared. We dissected the ethics, the potential fallout. Was it sinking to her level? Yes. But Chloe's level was the only one she and her mother seemed to respect. Any attempt at high-minded, mature conversation had been thrown back in my face. This was a language of spectacle, the only one they truly spoke. The next weekend, we went to a quiet, antique jewelry shop downtown. We didn't want a massive, showy diamond like Chloe's. We found a beautiful, vintage ring with a small sapphire surrounded by delicate filigree. It was unique, elegant, and understated. It was me. Liam bought it, and we hid the small velvet box in the back of his sock drawer. It was our secret, a pact made between us. For the next year, we would play our parts. I would be the dutiful bridesmaid. He would be the supportive boyfriend. We would smile, we would help with the planning, and we would wait. The wedding was 10 months away. 10 months of playing the part of the gracious, forgotten stepsister, all while knowing that on her biggest day, I would finally have the last word. The thought didn't make me feel cruel, it made me feel powerful. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting to their drama, I was writing my own. The 10 months leading up to Chloe's wedding were a slow-burn torture test of my patience. As a bridesmaid, I was contractually obligated to be excited, supportive, and available for every whim and wedding-related emergency. My life became a satellite to planet Chloe, and the gravitational pull was suffocating. First came the bridesmaid dress shopping. Chloe had chosen 6 of her closest friends, plus me. The plus me was always palpable. I was the obligatory inclusion, the political appointment. We were herded into an expensive boutique where Chloe had her heart set on a specific style of dress. A strapless, mermaid-cut gown in a particularly unforgiving shade of dusty rose satin. It was a style that looked fantastic on Chloe's tall, slender frame and utterly dreadful on anyone with curves, a shorter torso, or a different skin tone, which described about half the bridal party, including me. "Isn't it divine?" Chloe breathed, holding the dress up against herself in the mirror. One of her friends, a girl named Jessica, bravely spoke up. "It's beautiful, Chloe, but I'm not sure if the cut will be flattering on all of us." Karen, who had appointed herself head coordinator of everything, waved a dismissive hand. "Nonsense. You'll all look lovely. The day is about making the bride happy, not about whether a dress makes your hips look wide." She said it with a laugh, but her eyes, when they met mine in the mirror, were cold as ice. The message was clear: your comfort is irrelevant. I paid the exorbitant price for the dress, a dress I knew I would look and feel terrible in, and smiled. Inside, I thought of the small, velvet box in Liam's sock drawer. Next was the bridal shower, an over-the-top affair at a country club, with a guest list of over 100 people. The theme was breakfast at Tiffany's, and the gift registry was a laundry list of designer homewares that cost more than my monthly rent. My gift, a set of elegant but reasonably priced wine glasses, was placed on a table groaning under the weight of KitchenAid mixers, Le Creuset cookware, and monogrammed silver. During the gift-opening ceremony, Chloe would hold up each present, shriek with delight, and Karen would provide a running commentary on the price and status of the giver. When Chloe opened my gift, she held them up and said, "Oh, glasses, cute." She then immediately moved on to a set of Egyptian cotton towels from one of Karen's wealthy friends, gushing for 5 minutes about their thread count. It was a deliberate, public slight. Liam, who had come as my plus one, squeezed my hand under the table. His presence was my anchor. He saw it all, he understood. The true test of my resolve, however, was the bachelorette party. Chloe had decided on a long weekend in Miami, a trip that involved flights, a luxury hotel suite, and a schedule of expensive club appearances. The estimated cost per bridesmaid was astronomical. When the budget was announced in our group chat, I felt a wave of nausea. I had just started a junior graphic design position and was carefully building my savings. This trip would wipe out months of progress. I called Chloe, intending to explain my financial situation and perhaps suggest I could participate in a local celebration instead. "Chloe, the Miami trip sounds amazing," I began carefully, "but the cost is a little steep for me right now. I've just started my new job and—" She cut me off, her voice turning cold. "Are you serious, Bella? You're backing out. This is my one bachelorette party. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience." "I'm not trying to back out of celebrating," I explained. "I just can't afford a $2,000 weekend right now. Maybe I could take you out for a special spa day here." "A spa day," she scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. "That's not the same. All my other friends are making it work. I guess I just thought you'd want to make the effort for your sister. This is really selfish of you, you know that. You're putting a damper on my wedding joy." The conversation ended with her hanging up on me. An hour later, my father called. "Bella, I just got off the phone with Karen," he began, and I knew what was coming. "She said you're refusing to go to Chloe's bachelorette party. You've made your sister cry." "Dad, I can't afford it," I said, the words feeling thin and useless against their wall of entitlement. "It's thousands of dollars." "Money is not an excuse to hurt your family," he said, his voice stern, echoing words that were surely Karen's. "I'll tell you what, I'll lend you the money, but you are going on that trip, and you are going to put a smile on your face and be happy for Chloe. Is that clear?" He wasn't offering to help, he was issuing an order. He was willing to put me in debt to him to appease his wife and stepdaughter. That phone call was the final straw. It wasn't just about my stolen graduation party anymore. It was about this moment, this complete and utter disregard for my life, my finances, and my feelings. It was the realization that in my father's eyes, my purpose was to serve as a prop in Chloe's perfect life, and any deviation was a personal failing. I took the loan. I went to Miami. I wore the tight, expensive dresses, paid for the overpriced drinks, and smiled through gritted teeth as Chloe and her friends documented every moment for their social media followers. I was a ghost in the background of their perfectly curated photos, my face a mask of forced celebration. On the last night, sitting on the hotel balcony overlooking the glittering lights of the city, Chloe found me. She was slightly tipsy and in a rare, reflective mood. "You know, Bella," she said, leaning against the railing, "I'm glad you came, it means a lot." For a fleeting second, I thought I might see a glimpse of a real person. "I just want everything to be perfect," she continued, her voice dreamy. "My wedding has to be the best day of my life, the best day of anyone's life, really." She turned to me, her eyes sharp and serious. "So please, at the wedding, just be happy for me. No drama. The day is about me and Jason, just me, okay?" It was a warning. A final, patronizing instruction. She didn't want a sister, she wanted an audience. "Okay, Chloe," I said, my voice smooth as glass. "I promise, the day will be unforgettable." She smiled, satisfied, and walked back inside to her friends. I stayed on the balcony, the warm ocean breeze doing nothing to cool the ice in my veins. The guilt I had been wrestling with for months evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard certainty. I wasn't sinking to her level. I was meeting her on the only battlefield she recognized, and I was ready. The day of the wedding arrived, a crisp, sunny Saturday in October. The venue was a sprawling historic estate with manicured gardens and a grand ballroom, a place designed to make a statement. As a bridesmaid, my day started at dawn in a flurry of hairspray, makeup, and rustling fabric. I put on the dusty rose mermaid gown, which was just as uncomfortable and unflattering as I had predicted. As I looked at my reflection, I saw the smiling, compliant Bella my family expected me to be. But in my eyes, there was a glint of something else, a secret resolve. I went through the motions with practiced ease. I helped Chloe into her magnificent, lace-covered gown. I held her bouquet. I walked down the aisle with a serene smile on my face, my eyes fixed on Liam, who was seated in the third row. He gave me a small, almost imperceptible nod. The little velvet box was safe in his jacket pocket. The ceremony was beautiful, I couldn't deny it. Chloe and Jason exchanged heartfelt, self-written vows under an archway of white roses. Karen wept openly into a silk handkerchief. My father beamed, looking prouder than I had ever seen him. A part of me, the little girl who still wanted her dad's approval, felt a pang of sadness. I was about to detonate a bomb in the middle of his happiness. But then I remembered his voice on the phone, telling me that money was no excuse to hurt family after I had been hurt for years. The sadness hardened back into resolve. The reception was held in the grand ballroom. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead, and every table was adorned with towering floral centerpieces. The champagne flowed freely. After the bride and groom made their grand entrance and had their first dance, it was time for the speeches. The best man gave a funny, rambling toast. The maid of honor, Chloe's best friend since childhood, gave a tearful, loving one. Then my father stood up. He spoke of how happy he was to see his family blending so beautifully, how he loved Chloe like his own daughter, and how wonderful it was to see her so happy. He glanced at me and smiled, a brief, inclusive gesture that felt like too little, far too late. After his speech, the MC announced it was time to open the dance floor. This was our window. It was now or never. I looked at Liam. He met my gaze, his expression calm and certain. He gave another tiny nod. I took a deep breath, stood up, and picked up my champagne flute. With a steady hand, I clinked it with my knife. Ting, ting, ting. The sound, delicate but clear, cut through the rising chatter. A few heads turned, then a few more. A hush fell over the room. Chloe and Jason, who were about to start dancing, looked over at me, their expressions confused. My father and Karen stared at me, their brows furrowed. I just wanted to say a few words, if that's okay, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I projected it across the room, just as Chloe had done in my backyard. Chloe's eyes narrowed slightly. A flicker of annoyance crossed her face. I had been explicitly told there were no more speeches. Chloe, watching you today has been so incredibly inspiring, I began, my voice filled with a syrupy sweetness that mimicked hers perfectly. You and Jason, you're a perfect match. And seeing you so happy has made me reflect on my own life, and on the importance of finding that one person who sees you for who you are. I let my eyes drift over to Liam. He stood up from his seat. The entire ballroom was now silent, watching this unexpected drama unfold. It makes you realize that you shouldn't wait for the perfect time, because sometimes the perfect time is a moment you never expected, I continued, my voice gaining strength. It's a moment of pure joy and celebration, a moment so full of love that you just have to share it. I was quoting her now, twisting the words she had used to justify her announcement at my party. I saw a flash of recognition, then dawning horror, in Chloe's eyes. Karen's face had gone pale. My father looked utterly bewildered. I turned my full attention to Liam, who was now walking towards me. And it's in that spirit of love and beautiful, unexpected moments. I let the sentence hang in the air as Liam stopped in front of me. In one smooth, practiced motion, he dropped to one knee. He didn't say a word. He just opened the small, velvet box. Inside, the vintage sapphire ring seemed to glow under the light of the chandeliers. A collective, audible gasp swept through the ballroom. It was a sound of pure shock. I looked down at Liam, then back at the crowd, my eyes finally landing on Chloe. Her face was a mask of incandescent rage. Her fairy tale was being upstaged. Her spotlight was being stolen. For the first time in her life, she knew exactly how it felt. Yes, I said, my voice ringing in the silent room. Yes, of course, yes. Liam slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly. He stood up, and I fell into his arms as the ballroom erupted, but it wasn't an eruption of applause. It was an eruption of chaos. Whispers turned into loud murmurs. Phones were suddenly raised, not to take pictures of the bride and groom, but of us. We had done it. The bomb had gone off, and it was more spectacular than I could have ever imagined. The moment Liam and I broke our embrace, the illusion of a happy wedding reception shattered completely. The first to reach us was Karen, her face contorted with a fury so intense she seemed to vibrate with it. How dare you, she hissed, her voice a low, venomous whisper that carried more menace than a shout. How dare you do this to my daughter, on her wedding day? Chloe was right behind her, her beautiful makeup streaked with angry tears. You are the most selfish, evil person I have ever known, she screamed, all pretense of composure gone. The word evil echoed slightly in the vast room. You did this on purpose, you ruined my wedding. You mean like you ruined my graduation party? I asked calmly, my newfound adrenaline creating a strange, detached peace within me. The simple, direct question seemed to stun her into a split second of silence, but Karen recovered instantly. That was completely different, she shrieked, jabbing a finger toward me. She was excited. You are a vengeful, jealous child. Jason, Chloe's new husband, came storming over, his face flushed red. Get out, he seethed, pointing toward the door. Both of you, get out of my wedding, now. My father finally pushed through the circle of gawking guests that had formed around us. He looked older than he had just an hour before, his face pale and slack with shock. Bella, why, he pleaded, his voice cracking. Why would you do this? Why, I repeated, a decade of suppressed resentment bubbling to the surface. You're asking me why, Dad? Where were you when she announced her engagement in the middle of my party? You told me to be sensitive. You told me to be the bigger person. You stood by and watched them diminish every single thing I ever accomplished so that Chloe could have more. I did this because this is the only language you people understand. My words hung in the air, an indictment he couldn't deflect. He had no answer. He just stared at me, his eyes filled with a devastating mix of anger and hurt. He looked at Karen, then at Chloe, and then back at me. I saw him make his choice. He stepped back, moving to stand beside his wife, physically and symbolically siding with them. It was the moment I knew I had not just lost my family, but that I had, in fact, lost them long ago. I just hadn't been willing to admit it until now. "Let's go, Bella," Liam said quietly, his hand firm on my back. He was my shield, my anchor in the storm I had created. We turned and walked away. We didn't run. We walked with our heads held high through the sea of shocked faces and whispering guests. The journey from the center of the ballroom to the exit doors felt a mile long. Every eye was on us. As we pushed open the heavy oak doors and stepped into the cool night air, the noise of the ruined reception faded behind us. We got into our car, and as Liam pulled away from the grand estate, I looked at the sapphire on my finger, glittering in the dashboard lights. I felt a profound, exhilarating, and terrifying sense of freedom. The fallout was immediate and absolute. Before we had even made it home, my phone began to buzz incessantly. A string of furious, incoherent texts from Chloe, missed calls from aunts and uncles. Then, the single-word message that summed it all up: evil. After that, she blocked me. Karen had already blocked me before we left the parking lot. The next morning, I tried calling my father. He didn't pick up. I tried again in the afternoon. It went straight to voicemail. He had blocked my number. The finality of it was like a punch to the gut. The anger and adrenaline from the night before had subsided, leaving a hollow, aching sadness in its place. I had known this would happen, but the reality of being completely and utterly cut off by my own father was a deeper wound than I had prepared for. He did, however, leave one final message. It wasn't a call or a text, but an email that arrived 2 days later. The subject line was simply, "Your things." The email was short and brutally cold. He informed me that he and Karen would be packing up any belongings I still had at the house: childhood photo albums, old art projects, things I had stored in their attic. He would leave them in boxes on the front porch for me to collect on a specific day at a specific time, and he requested that I not attempt to ring the doorbell or speak with anyone. That was it, no discussion, no final confronta. Tian, just a logistical message for the disposal of my past. I sat on the couch in my apartment, staring at the email, and I cried. I cried for the father I had lost, for the little girl who just wanted her dad to stand up for her, and for the family that was now just a collection of painful memories. Liam held me, letting me cry until I had no tears left. "You did what you had to do," he kept saying. "You stood up for yourself." He was right. The pain was immense, but underneath it was a bedrock of certainty. Their reaction, the speed and totality with which they had excised me, proved my point more than my actions ever could. Their love was conditional, and the condition was my silence and submission. By refusing to be silent, I had voided the contract. It has been 6 months since the wedding, 6 months of silence. As my father promised, my childhood was packed into a few cardboard boxes and left on a porch like a donation. I picked them up with Liam, and we drove away from that house for the last time without a single word being exchanged. The silence from their end has been absolute. I've been removed from family photos on social media, uninvited from the holidays, and erased from the narrative of their lives. According to a cousin who still speaks to me in hushed, secretive tones, the official story is that I had a psychotic break at the wedding, born of jealousy. They have painted me as unhinged, and themselves as the unfortunate victims. There are days when the grief is a physical weight. I miss my dad, or at least the idea of the dad I once had. I feel the phantom limb of a family that is no longer there. But then I look at the sapphire ring on my finger, and I remember why I did it. I didn't have a psychotic break. I had a moment of pure, undiluted clarity. I spoke a truth they had spent a decade burying, and I did it in the only way they would ever be forced to listen. My entire family has cut me off and says I'm evil, but I don't regret it. I don't regret the act itself because it was a response to a wound they inflicted first. My only regret is that it had to come to that. I regret that my father never found the courage to protect me. I regret that my stepmother's love for her daughter was so blind it became a weapon. I regret that my stepsister values attention more than kindness. But I do not, and will not, regret taking my power back. The strangest part is the peace that has settled in the aftermath. My life is quiet now. There are no more passive-aggressive phone calls from Karen, no more demands from Chloe, no more walking on eggshells at family gatherings. The constant, low-level anxiety that had been the background noise of my entire life is gone. Liam and I are building our own life on our own terms. We are planning our own wedding, a small, simple ceremony on a cliff overlooking the ocean, with a guest list composed only of the people who truly love and support us. Our engagement, born in an act of rebellion, has become a symbol of our unwavering partnership. He was the one who stood by me when my own family turned their backs. He is my family now. We have my childhood photos, the ones I rescued from the porch, and we are making new memories to go alongside them. My career in graphic design is taking off, and for the first time, I feel like I am the sole author of my own story. The narrative is no longer controlled by Chloe's need for the spotlight or Karen's manipulations. It's just mine. So I'm putting this out there for the world to see because I need to know. After hearing it all, the years of being minimized, the stolen celebration, the final dramatic act of rebellion, what do you think? Did I go too far? Or was it the only way to finally end a game I had never asked to play?